Deborah McAleese, thank you.
14 people reported to the PPS after last year's Black Lives Matter protests will not be prosecuted.
The decision relates to 3 rallies in Belfast and Londonderry last summer, held during strict COVID restrictions. Mark Mallett reports.
I feel relieved because this is an injustice that has been hanging over our heads for 12 months now. So we feel vindicated. We feel that at least we are free, we can breathe again, we can sleep well tonight.
Lillian Sinwa Barr is a human rights activist, and the relieved one at that. She was one of 14 people facing prosecution in relation to last year's Black Lives Matter demonstrations in Belfast and Derry. They took place against a backdrop of strict COVID rules preventing public gatherings, but the Public Prosecution Service says the test for prosecution was not met because the suspects would have been able to successfully argue a defence of reasonable excuse, that being the right to protest. In a statement today, the PPS said the conclusion reached in relation to the 14 people who were seeking to safely exercise their right to freedom of peaceful assembly and expression on an important social issue is that there is no prospect of conviction in relation to any offence.
There's no trust, and I'm not going to beat about the bush about this. There are so many people who feel let down. When we talk about racial equality and fairness, these are not slogans. They are supposed to be policies that are enacted in practice.
Last year, the police ombudsman said there was justification in claims that the police response to the BLM protests was unfair and discriminatory, and indeed a claim of racial discrimination is still being investigated. The PSNI has often said that it hasn't been easy nor comfortable in getting the balance right between the right to protest and the enforcement of the COVID regulations. And once again today the force said sorry.
What we now know is that the regulations and the police approach should have been moderated by people's right to freedom of expression and right to assemble, which are rights in the human rights law. But we didn't prioritise those. So we accept that we got that wrong. We wish we hadn't got it wrong. If we hadn't got it wrong, then we wouldn't have had all the difficulties and damage that has been done to community relations.
This isn't the first time the PSNI has faced severe criticism for the action or inaction it took during the pandemic. The Bobby Story funeral, the Sean Graham Bookmakers anniversary and the Loyalist walk through Pitt Park, further examples of such. And the Deputy Chief Constable has denied that the PSNI is in any way racist.
I would argue that we're not prejudiced against people because of their colour. That's not our organisational position, and I wouldn't want to be associated with an organisation that does do that. But equally, I have to take responsibility for our actions. I have to take responsibility for how people see that. We see that not just with the BME community. We've had a lot of criticism recently from other communities, the PUL community as well. So we need to listen. I know we're saying that a lot, but we need to. And we need to try and police people in a way that shows equality and also shows adherence to the law in a way that's proportionate and necessary. And these are all very difficult things, Mark, and not always get it right, but that's what we're trying to do.
And the Chief Constable Simon Byrne will face further questions when he appears at the Policing Board tomorrow. Mark Mallett, ITV Live, Belfast.